Okay, so shalom. So now listen, because many of you want to know. I've been speaking a little bit more frequently. I've been speaking a little bit more frequently than average. Okay, and I want to tell you all why. Okay, so this is my introduction. Okay, so one of the reasons why I've been speaking a little bit more than average, and I have plenty more things to say. I have to say these things, right? The reason is because I see a lot of people might not believe these things. So I'm not even going to say that. Just like about a week ago, right? I got a phone call from a certain person. They called my phone directly. Okay? I'm not going to tell you all who this was because none of you will believe me. If I told you all who called me, none of you would believe me. You wouldn't believe me. So sometimes it's better to not say, trust me, trust me, you wouldn't believe me. No, it wasn't Yah. It wasn't Yah. But in any event, I got a phone call from somebody about a week ago. And if I were to tell you all who it was, I'm 100% sure that you wouldn't. I'm 100% sure that 95% of you would not believe me. 3% would be highly skeptical but say it's possible. Only 2% will be like, you know what? Him, probably so. Like me, probably so. But in any event, though, I got to tell you all, I got a very, very mysterious and infamous phone call about a week ago. Now, I can't tell y'all, okay? You won't believe me. All right? So, why am I speaking a little bit more frequent? Because I gave Christ a promise. I didn't tell you all. I didn't give the promise to you all. I gave the promise to Christ. Now, nothing's going to change basically, right? My messages still pretty much vary twice a week, Wednesday and Sunday for the most part, right? But you don't know necessarily because some things are changing. But for the most part, still everything, see, the way I do things isn't because of any personal influence. The way that I do things is never because of a personal influence, whether positive or negative. The reason why I do things because Christ says, be wise as a serpent. So there must be a strategy among these things, okay? Now, pretty soon it will come to a time where I have to throw the strategy out of the window. I got to throw the strategy in the trash soon enough. Not now. Because soon enough, Christ is just going to want me to speak no holds barred. He's going to want me to say names. He's going to want me to do all of this stuff. And I'm going to have to deal with all the smoke that comes with it. Right? So I'm going to deal with those things later. But right now, though, it's kind of my time. But still, I had gave him a specific promise to drop these specific messages. And I almost forgot. There's actually 11 messages here. I'm only on what? Like the third or fourth one? But these messages have been coming so frequent lately because I have to get them out before the New Year's because it was my promise to Christ. So if you want to know why I'm speaking frequently, that's why. It's right here. That's why. Okay? So I gotta do the work of the Most High, man. Okay? Now, this message is titled Foolishness, Volume 2. Okay? The last one was Foolishness, Volume 1. This message is Foolishness, Volume 2. Okay? Now, let's get to it right here. The first segment, this message has 5 segments, okay? But nonetheless, it's not going to be like 2 hours or 3 hours long, right? Because I'm getting right into it right now. But I'm not, normally I repeat things. So I need you all to pay very careful attention because I'm not going to repeat much. Because if I repeat a lot, right, this message is going to take forever. Oh, okay. To my nephew, all right? Listen carefully. Okay, little nephew. Not my real nephew, but I know, well, I'm not live, but you watch my messages, so you'll see this. The advice, you wanted me to give you advice on the conversation that we had earlier. My advice to you is to not get the carrying license. You know why? Because you have certain ways about you. You're not strong enough to carry a gun. See, a lot of people don't understand that in order to carry a pistol, you have to be very strong. You have to be strong. Weak people cannot carry pistols. Okay? If you're weak, you should not have a pistol. Okay? And that's actually one of my lessons too. But that one I actually don't have to cover anytime soon, to be honest with you. But so young man, if you can't compose yourself, okay, I wouldn't personally take out for that carrying, okay? Because you have a temper, and I don't think that. So that's basically the conversation. I know I didn't give you much input earlier because I was just listening to the things you were saying. I understand you're going through things with your old lady and stuff like that, but okay. So, but I'll talk to you later about that, okay? That's you calling me, okay? So I can't talk to you right now. All right, young blood. All right. So now the first segment is called selfish. Okay. This first segment is titled selfish. Okay. So before I get into all of this message, I want to read a story to you all. Okay. I want to read a story to you all because you all say that it's for the kids, right? Many of you out there, you say that Christmas is for the children. Now, there are men that say that too. There are some men out there that say that Christmas is for the children. Hell, there's a lot of people out there. Hell, Christmas, the whole objective of Christmas really is for the children. Now, I mean, one aspect of it, but there's another aspect of it that the adults like as well. But I want you all to understand something. Oh, it's for the children. Oh, come on now. Stop acting like that, Henry. It's for little Henry. It's for little Henry. Or, Dad, why can't he get a Christmas? Why can't he have a Christmas? His friends is having Christmas. See, I want to explain to you why that's selfish. And I want you all to pay very close attention. Not only is this selfish, but it's also destruction and demise to our own people. Therefore, 2/3 of you simply have to be destroyed because you don't like the laws of God. Let's go to 1 Kings 3:16. 1 Kings 3:16. And I want to give an example of how selfish our people are and how selfish that a lot of our mothers can be toward their own children. Let's go to 1 Kings 3:16. For many of you women and men and men also that say, well, it's for the children. Man, just go ahead and celebrate. Let him celebrate Christmas. Come on now. It ain't that deep. That crap the boy talking about, man, it's not that deep. Okay? 1 Kings 3. Let's start at verse 16. Then came there two women. So now, this is what is going on while Israel is at peace. And I'm going to say something after this. Hope I don't forget. Now, remember I told you that us as a people have been in and out of captivity generation after generation, apocalypse after apocalypse, dispensation after dispensation, cycle after cycle, age after age. We've been in captivity, out of captivity, back in captivity, out of captivity for a short while, back in captivity. And now many of you don't know it, but don't worry. You'll know soon enough for those of you who don't know now. And we're back in captivity again. This is not our land, black people. These are not our houses. This isn't your block, your neighborhood, none of that. Some people like to scream, I'm from this and that street. You're so foolish. You're so foolish. First, you have to consider if you actually own anything in the neighborhood. And then if you do, you still don't own it. Okay? Let me explain how selfish our people are with a nice little story here. Now, at this time, Israel we're in our own land. We're not captive. We're under the reign of King Solomon. King Solomon was a great king. Okay? I really don't know his whereabouts right now, to be honest with you all. Many of you all can say what you want to. I'm not going to make a debate about that right now, whether or not Solomon is in the Shamayim, in the heavens. Okay? But nonetheless, he still was a great king, right? The scripture says he was a great king, right? Not like his father, but he was a great king. So now, it came to pass, then came there two women that were harlots unto the king and stood before him. And the one woman said, O my master, and I and this woman dwell in one house, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. So, in other words, two women came to the king. Whether or not they were prostitutes is not necessarily relevant. It is to an extent, but we're not going to get into that because I'm not going to be judgmental in that retrospect, right? But I want you to focus on what's going on here. So we have two women, right, and they're under one roof, okay? One of them, they both come to the king, and one of them said, I had a child, okay? The way it's worded says, and I was delivered of a child. Make it sound like she was actually the one that was born, but she says, and I was delivered of a child with her in the house. So in other words, they both occupied the house when she went into labor, when she conceived and then later went into labor, and she had a baby boy, right? And she said, and then she says, and the one woman said, and it came to pass the third day after I was delivered. So two women came to Solomon. One of the women says, listen, basically, I had birth to a baby boy. And then she's going to say, and 3 days later, the other woman the other woman that I shared a residence with, she also had a baby boy, okay? Now, listen to what it says, okay? That this woman was delivered. Also, we were together. So now it says that this woman was also delivered also. So she had a child also, basically, right? And we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house except us two. So the reason why she said stranger is because, meaning there wasn't a John. Wherever there's a whore, there's a whoremonger, right? So both must be judged. This is not. Listen, this has no basis on the point that I'm making. It has a basis on the story in whole as to why Solomon made his decision in reference the decision you'll see later. But that's not why I'm just reading the scriptures. So you know. Um, So this is not me referencing whether or not the occupation of these two women, okay? Because wherever there's a whore, there's a whoremonger, and in some cases, the whoremonger is worse than the whore, okay? So I just wanna, because I have to be a thoroughbred about that. I have to be humble, and I have to be a thoroughbred about that. So let me say that again, because not that I care about you all feelings, but I have to be humble in this retrospect, okay? So, like I said, this has nothing to do with the occupation of these two women. Wherever there's a whore, there's even worse, a whoremonger taking advantage of that whore, okay? So, with that being said, okay, it's also going to say here, so they're going to say, so basically, 3 days later, the other woman, she had a child, okay? Now, and then she's going to say, and this woman, her child died in the night. So one of the children died. Okay, one of the boys died in its sleep. Okay, because she overlaid it. So I guess it caught SIDS. I didn't actually research that word overlaid it. Maybe she put the child on her stomach and put the child on his stomach too early, or whatever or whatnot. So maybe that's the case. But if you all would like to research that, you can just go into the Strongs and research that yourself, right? But I didn't find that necessarily relevant. Not to my point that I'm making. Okay, so she's making the argument to Solomon. But listen, the woman who went into labor 3 days after me, at night her child died. Okay, and she rose at midnight and took my son from beside me. Now, this is the point of my message here. So the woman is making the argument to Solomon. She said, "But this heifer came and took my son while he was right next to me while I was asleep, while my handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and then laid her dead child in my bosom." So this woman was wicked. So she came and switched babies with her while she was asleep. She gave her the dead infant, and she kept her live infant for herself. And I also want to say, if there's any women out there that lost any young children lately, okay, you have my, what do everybody? You have my condolences, okay? I know that's certainly not easy. All right, anybody that lost a young child, but specifically to any women, okay. So, in other words, so basically now she's making the argument. So listen, the woman, she switched children with her. She took my living son and switched it with her dead son. Okay? Now, and the other woman is now going to make her case, the woman that did the switcheroo, right? So now the other woman said, nay. So in other words, she's denying it, right? But the living is my son, and the dead is thy son. And this said, no, but the dead. So in other words, and what it meant, the wording, the King James wording sometimes is very tricky. So when it says, and this said, so basically he's saying that now they're going back and forth, because after she denied it, then the other woman come in and said no. So now basically what it means is they're going back and forth. They're debating, okay? Or shall I say they're arguing. They about to get into it, I'm sure, over something like this, right? So they start going back and forth. Then said the king. So then said Solomon. Now pay attention. So now then said Solomon, right? The one saith, "This is my son." So in other words, Solomon is speaking to both women. Okay, so I don't want to have to go through that. So he's saying to the one that says it's my son, and to the one that says. So in other words, he's saying, "Listen, to you and to you, right?" And the other saith nay. So in other words, he's saying all this going back and forth. I'm just trying to paraphrase this for you all. He said, no, we ain't gotta go through all this back and forth because one of you are lying, right? One of you are lying. Now listen to his wisdom. Okay. And the king said, "Bring me a sword." And they brought a sword before the king. Pay attention. And the king said, because he didn't know who was telling the truth. Why? Because one said, "Hey, look, she took my son." And she said, "No, I didn't. That's my son." "No, you took my son while I was asleep and gave me your dead." No, I didn't. That living son, that's my son." So now, really, as a human being, you don't know, right? You don't know who's telling the truth. You really don't, right? But I'm going to tell you how tricky Solomon was. Listen to his wisdom. So Solomon says, "Hey, look, listen here. We're gonna cut to the chase. Go get a sword." And so the women, maybe not the women, but one of his servants brought him a sword. And Solomon said, "Divide the living child into two. Cut his ass in half. And give half to the one and the half to the other." Now, pay attention. Because this is how he determined who was lying and who wasn't lying. Then spake the woman, whose the living child was, unto the king.